feel so unworthy to stand here. I mean, he is worthy of it all. I mean, he is why we have breath, why we have life, why we gather in this room to worship him. So grateful for our kids who are kinder through fifth are getting to go out and have a time of being together around God's word in a way that might be a little bit different in here. Used to always call this big church or kids church, but grateful for our families. Grateful for my daughter to get to pray for her. Just so grateful to be here. Grateful for our worship team, our staff, our church, all of our leaders that gather here early before their life groups because they love and get to lead in those areas and to connect. That is our desire, that we would make much of him. But even as I say that statement, it's all about him. But then as I look at the title of today's message, it's all about me. What if I've blown it? Because the reality is God is creator of everything, and he stepped down out of heaven to walk among us and to show us what love looks like. And the good news is even though he showed us what love looks like and he's called us and adopted us into his family, we're still going to blow it as imperfect creation. That's one of my favorite things about this book is there are no perfect stories in here. And I've always asked that question, what if the Bible were still being written, which part of your life would make it into here? Probably not the parts that I would want to be told, right? We always like to be the hero of our own story. But the reality is we've all had those moments of failure. And so right now, can you think about a time where you've blown it? Very easily. Nobody in the room says, I can't think of anything. I mean, we can think of a word shared, something we did, somebody we hurt deeply. We can think of moments that changed our future forever. But the good news is God meets us in our failures and our wins. He's there. Until we take our last breath, we have opportunity to continue to follow after him and to be obedient and to love him. And so this morning as we come to his word, I mean, we can all think about, I think about failure stories. Peter's one of those stories that always comes to my mind. And we can remember it that night in the courtyard. There's a charcoal fire burning. It's night. The smoke is rising. And there's the servant girl in the court who recognizes Peter and says, you were one of those man's disciples, weren't you? Of course, Peter, the proud, loud, first one to run into the fight, says, of course I am. In that moment, all of his boisterous part of his personality went silent, and he went, no. He denied him. And he denied him, and he denied him. And in that moment, his heart broke, and the tears fell, and he wept. Because just hours before this moment, Peter was sitting with the other disciples with Jesus, observing the Passover together, and Jesus tells them that, that they're going to deny him, and Peter's like, no, it's not me. I mean, he's like I said, Peter's that the guy who you want to be. He's like the captain of the football team. He's going to run into the fight, and even in the garden later that night, he grabs out his sword and he whacks off the servant's ear. And in that moment could have died if it were not for Jesus stepping in and healing the servant. Jesus would be arrested that night. He would be crucified, but he rose again. It changed everything. The Gospels record Jesus appearing to his disciples and others in multiple situations. There's just one moment where he's walking along the road to Emmaus with these two followers of him, and as he's talking with them, he shares in Luke 20:24 that he says that Jesus had appeared to Simon. And so we don't know what Jesus said to Simon in that private encounter that they had, but we know that obviously Jesus loved Peter. And so there had to be a private restoration moment when Peter got to see Jesus. I mean, it's like when you know you've blown it and you see that person who you hurt, and as soon as you see them, you run to them. He's like, I'm sorry. And so we know that you just wonder what was that conversation like between Jesus and Peter in that private moment. But here in John 21, we see Peter's public restoration of his very public failure as he denied Christ in front of everybody, and everybody knew it. So if you've got your Bibles with you, I want to encourage you to turn to John chapter 21. The words will also be on the screen. But let's look at this account of this reinstatement of Peter. And as you look at all four Gospels record Peter's failure. I mean, wouldn't you love it, like I said, if the book, Let There Be Light. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Scott. Hey. And so wouldn't you love to know that your story is going to be recorded in all the newspapers? It's Peter's failure is very public. They all recorded it. But it's interesting when you read all the Gospels, not all of them record his restoration. And that kind of like the news. We see on the news, they're going to report all the bad stuff that happens about our schools, about wrecks, about everything negative. But those positive stories don't make the headlines. And so only John records this moment where Jesus restores Peter. So if you've got your Bibles, let's read together John 21. When they had finished, I'm in verse 15 of 21. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, feed my lambs. And he said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, tend my sheep. And then he said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted, but when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death he would glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Peter and says 7 of the disciples are out in the boat and they're fishing. And Jesus calls to them from the shore. He's cooked breakfast. The fire is already going. There's fish they're cooking. And so they share this moment of fellowship, this moment of breakfast together when Jesus starts up this conversation. There was a time when we were having some discipleship moments at our house, and we eat together as a family pretty regularly. Those are special times where we gather, and then the conversation would turn spiritual, and we would call them fight nights. Any of y'all ever have those moments, where you want it to go one way and it doesn't go the way you planned? This is probably not how Peter saw this conversation going, but they've just had this breakfast, and in this moment, Jesus speaks to Simon Peter, and it's in front of all of the disciples, and he asks this hard question and says, do you love me more than these? These most likely refers to the disciples. There's a debate on what these could refer to, but context to me looks like it's, hey, do you love me more than these? And remember Peter's personality. He was, like I said, he was the head of the group. He was going to be the first one to stand up and speak for everybody, to rush into the crowd to declare his loyalty. Like, hey, if not everybody but me. And that's what happened at the Passover meal. When Jesus says, hey, tonight, all of you are going to deny me. And that's when Peter boldly says, hey, though everybody fall away, because of you, not me. Man, that's his way to say, hey, I love you more than everybody else. I'm following you more than everybody else. Not me. He used that word, never. I will never fall away. What did your mama tell you about using the word never? Never use never. Never say always. And we catch ourselves doing it. One of the phrases that my girls make fun of me is I've said, I never, ever, ever do that. She's grinning right now because she knows, and they make fun of me. It's a saying in our house. But the reality is we do. We repeat mistakes. And in this moment, Peter's intention was good, but he still denied him very publicly that night in the courtyard as Jesus was on trial. And like I said, there was this charcoal fire there that was taking place, and it's interesting. Here we are along the lake here as they're getting ready to eat fish. There's also this charcoal fire. It's one of the things when you walk outside in our neighborhood, you can tell when somebody's charcoaling. You know the smell? When we do Village of the Nativity here, and we'll have the doors open for people to use the restroom that next Sunday morning, it smells like smoke. And when you smell things, that evokes memories. And so you just have to wonder too, when Peter smelled that smoke, he's like, I remember the last time I was around a fire. It did not go well. And our senses, those are tools that God's given us that bring those reminders to us. And I've given the slides to Charlotte again, these same verses that we looked at. I've actually highlighted some of the verses with some different colors, some yellow and red, because when we think about the Bible that we're reading, this is in English, and the New Testament was penned in Greek. And so in Greek, there are different languages, different words for the word love. And if you've grown up in church, you've heard those words, agape and phileo and eros, and those words are going, okay, there's different ways to say, I love chocolate, I love cats, I know, weird, and I love my wife, I love Jesus. I mean, we use that one word to describe a lot of different ways we love. And here, love is different as we look at it in the Greek. So when you see the yellow words on the screen, those are the words translated agape. And so when Jesus is saying, hey, Peter, do you agape me? Do you love me with this unconditional, this supreme, highest kind of love there is? And phileo is that brotherly love, the familial kind of love. We think about the word Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And so you see these two different kinds of words. And so Jesus, in his first conversation to Simon, he's asking, say, hey, do you agape me? Do you love me with the highest kind of love? And remember Peter's personality is like, yes, I love you with that agape kind of love, right? I mean, that's his response. He doesn't respond in this arrogant, prideful way that Peter normally does. He is humbled. Through that moment of failure, he's like, he doesn't say the agape kind of love. He responds with the word phileo. He says, Peter says, Lord, you know my heart. You know what I've done. You know that I phileo you. I love you like a brother. And that's a powerful moment. And in that moment, it's all in front of everybody. I mean, it's one thing to be confronted about your failure to be restored privately. But if we said, hey, let's come up here, let's talk about your stuff right here. Nobody wants that. It's like, hey, let's go talk about this privately. And when I think about that, how Jesus is talking to Peter, and in that moment, it is just Jesus and Peter. And even though he says, hey, do you love me more than these? It's not about what others think. It's not about the comparison game at that moment where we're going, well, yeah, I love you more. I mean, we're not playing that game. But Jesus is asking Peter publicly in front of everybody, and his response is, and I think about too with Jesus' response, was it, I know. Jesus' response was, I love you too. Jesus' response to Peter was feed my lambs. When Peter said, hey, Jesus, I love you. Jesus didn't say, hey, yeah, I know you love me. He's like, hey, I've got a job for you to do. I want you to to feed my lambs. And that word feed there also in the Greek is this term pasture. Any of y'all grew up on a farm? So I grew up on like 12 acres. We had cows. We didn't have sheep. But so when I think about the pasture, when I think about the things you step in pastures and the place where I saw those cows, they would graze and we just had fences and they ate. So that this term here, feed, is just like the word pasture. You know, you pasture animals and they graze on the land and you feed them other things from hay to feed and stuff. So this word here, Jesus is telling Peter, says, hey, feed my lambs. He said, hey, pasture them. Make sure that they are safe within the boundaries. Make sure that they have food to eat that's not going to kill them. Make sure that they have enough food. He also refers to people as lambs, and we'll see as we keep on reading, or sheep. And so as, you know, if you've grown up in church too, we've talked about sheep a lot. Sheep, are they smart? No. They are characterized by being, you know, not the smartest, not the strongest. They tend to get lost. You ever thought about LCM? How about the LCM sheep? No, we're the bears. Arr, you know, bears. I mean, you think about the different, you know, the Evendale rebels. I mean, we think of aggressive people. We don't think of sheep. That's nobody's mascot, because sheep aren't the smartest and they're not the strongest, and they get lost. And then the good news that Jesus calls you and me sheep. I had a friend of mine who's a pastor. That was his phrase, like, hey, Rusty, you know everybody's sheep, right? So, you know, you and I, we're sheep. So it's not just me calling you not the smartest, not the strongest. I'm also looking in a mirror at myself. But Jesus, as the good shepherd, he who lays down his life for his sheep. I mean, Isaiah 53 reminds us that all we like sheep have gone astray. I mean, Jesus, when he looked out at the people, that's what he saw. He saw the crowds, and he had compassion on them, and they looked like sheep without a shepherd. Because sheep, if they don't have a shepherd, it does not end well for them. They get lost and they die. They eat the wrong thing and they die. But Jesus, in this moment, as he's restoring Peter, as he said, hey, Peter, do you love me? And Peter's like, yes, I love you like a brother. Jesus like, hey, feed my lambs. And in verse 16, we read here, Jesus asked him a second time, hey, Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Do you love me with this highest kind of love? And Peter says to him, yes, Lord, I phileo you. I love you like a brother. And Jesus responds again, tend my sheep. And this word tend is a little bit different from feed. So it moves from pasture, like a cow pasture, to pastor. You know, like a pastor, where you're going to not just feed them, but you're going to pastor, you're going to take care of, you're going to tend to, you're going to shepherd the flock. And so it's more than just feeding. It's this idea of protecting and caring and taking care of. And so Jesus is telling Peter, hey, if you love me, let me remind you of your job. Your job is to tend my sheep. And of course, he goes on a third time. He asks this same question, but Jesus changes his word. It's no longer agape. Jesus says, hey, Peter, do you love me like a brother? Do you phileo me? And at this point, Peter is grieved, because he said it a third time. That number 3, this term of completion. Like, I utterly denied you back that night before you were crucified. But in this moment, he goes there 3 times. He asks him that same question. And he's grieved. I mean, he remembers. I mean, this is not a long time that has passed. He remembers the pain of failure. And not only does he say in that moment, hey, Lord, you know. He's like, Lord, you know everything. Like right now, one of the things that we're guilty about at church is we put on our best clothes. Everybody's got their makeup on, their hair done. And so when I look at you, I don't know if anything is wrong. But I know stuff is wrong. All across this room, we walk in with different hurts and hang-ups and habits. And Jesus loves us. He knows everything. He knew Peter. I mean, Peter, with his unique personality, knew his strengths and he knew his weaknesses. He knew that he would deny him. And Peter, in that moment, he remembers his failure, but with every response that Jesus says, hey, feed my lambs, tend my sheep. Here he says, feed my sheep. He's trying to shift Peter's focus. Because what happens when you fail? Where's all the focus? On me. I did it. I was wrong. Woe is me. You know, that's actually a wind on the mic. But, I mean, when we hurt and we suffer, we want that attention. Sometimes we want that pity. We want people to feel sorry for us. But Jesus is saying, stop looking at yourself. Look outward. Shift your focus outward. Even though Peter and his failure had sidelined him, Jesus still had a plan for his life. Peter just couldn't see it in the moment of his failure. Have you ever been there in the middle of your going, I don't know how this is going to work. I failed that test. Our team lost. I lost my job. My house was falling apart. I mean, fill in the blank. I mean, we have things in our life, and in those moments we can get so focused on that we miss Jesus' plan for our lives. And he is restoring Peter in this moment. He's restoring his calling to say, Peter, stop thinking about you. Let's think about others. And so when you think about your own personal life, that's one of the best ways to get somebody, if they're stuck in depression, is to say, hey, stop thinking about that moment. Let's go serve. Let's go help somebody else. Because there's always someone else that has a need. Even this morning, the church has been labeled, American church has been labeled as consumers. You know what a consumer is? Like when you go to your favorite restaurant, Casa Lay, you're going, oh, why did you choose Casa Lay? It's the first thing that popped in my mind. But when you go into Casa Lay, you sit down at your table and you want somebody to come and wait on you, take your order. And if they're a really good waiter, they notice when your drink is getting low. They don't wait for you to say, hey, can I have another water, another Dr. Pepper? They fill it up. They know what your needs are. I mean, we're consumers. A good waiter, they walk into the restaurant with a completely different mentality. They're trying to, like, hey, how can I meet your needs? Like, what's going on? Because that good waiter, they look. They know if that family's got kids, they're like, I got my work cut out from me. They know if they start ordering big ticket items, there's possibly a good tip coming. I mean, they're thinking that through. But the challenge is when you walk into this room on Sunday morning, we all walk in here saying, Lord, you know my heart, you know me. Just like we saw here, Peter said, hey, Lord, you know me. Like, I need you to speak to me today. I'm hurting. I have this need that I need you to meet. What is the need of the person next to you? What if God has you here today not for you, but to love on that person you're sitting next to serve that person across the aisle? When you come to a life group, the whole idea behind a life group is that you're in doing life together with others. You know what their needs are. You can pray for them. You can help when there's needs present. But one of our challenges by coming and sitting in a pew is it's just very easy. Like, hey, and you walk out here going, I liked the worship. I didn't like the worship. First of all, it's not for any of us here. If he liked the worship, if it was pleasing to him, we did what we're supposed to do today. If we walked out here going all the different things that we talk about worship, we've missed the God that we're worshiping. Also, we can come into this place and go, man, that message today was good. That's what I needed to hear. You hear all the eyes? That's what I needed, And the thing is, we're part of the equation. Just like Peter was part of the story. Jesus loved Peter. He had a plan for Peter. He has a plan for me. He has a plan for you. And it's to know him. It's to follow him. It's to serve him as we walk in that truth. I mean, we're fulfilling the calling that he has for us. And Peter had a call in his life, and he was, Jesus already said, hey, you're going to be, the rock. You're going to be this shepherd who's going to love others and to lead others. And as we read on into Acts, you see things where Peter did well. And you see also when Paul called him out and said, Peter, you're a hypocrite. So Peter didn't do it all right. None of us are going to do it all right. My story, those of you who know my story, man, the failure is great. But how great is my God to say, hey, Rusty, I love you. I have still got a plan for your life. And I'm humbled that God chooses to use me. That God chooses to use all of us in his plan of pasturing and pastoring the flock. And for some of you, it's your home. God has called you to love and feed and take care of and tend to your home. Some of it's your community, it's your neighbor, it's your class, it's your team, it's your coworkers. God has placed us all in circles with a calling on our lives to follow him and to shepherd those that he has blessed us, has put in our circle. So this morning as we come and we read this passage, we're like, well, I didn't blow it like Peter did. But a while ago when I asked that question, hey, have you ever blown it? Everybody thought immediately of moments in their life where we've fallen short, where we've failed. And I think Jesus asks us those same questions. Do you love me? It's interesting the question that he didn't ask. Hey, Peter, will you obey me? Hey, Peter, will you worship me? Hey, Peter, will you give? Because I think about my kids. What if Morgan, just because Morgan's my only kid here today, Morgan says, hey, Dad, for the rest of your years, you and Mom both, I will obey anything you ask. I will never fail you. I will never disappoint you. I'm going to obey you, but I'm not going to love you. I don't want obedience. I want her love. But when we love somebody, nobody has to tell me, hey, spend time with the person you love. That comes natural. And so when we don't want to spend time reading this book, the person who loved wrote this to us, that's a love problem. It's not an obedience problem. God says, love me, spend time with, it's just a natural overflow. When you love someone, you're going to want to obey them. I mean, this time that we gather to worship, when we love our Father, it's just, okay, I want to worship you. When it comes to giving, we just give out of generosity, not because we have to, but when we love somebody, it's what we want to do. It's the natural overflow of our heart. And the beauty of today is we're all at different places. Places of success, places of failure, where God is walking with us. And even the last line here in verse 19, he says, and after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Jesus already asked Peter to follow him all the way back in, according to Matthew 4. But he's reaffirming, Peter, keep on following me. Keep following. We don't have to earn salvation. This is not about salvation, but follow me. Keep following me. When you keep following someone, you want to be like them. Your identity changes. The image of us changes because we're with him. Jesus is always there, said, hey, follow me. Jesus is always there saying, hey, do you love me? If you're following me, if you love me, it's time. It's time to feed. It's time to care for others.